universal temple for the sun, planets, moon, and stars. I be your Lord of Hosts, Lord Messiah, and today we going into our government, and this is coming from our Declaration for Statehood, Nationhood, Nationality, and Race for Allah's 5% nation state. Just breaking these things down in sections to make certain things known. Because I know a lot of people don't read. So I'm trying to, do an audio-visual breakdown of this for y'all to, get this understood. So let's get it. So this is section C of the 4 elements that it takes to basically establish your state, which are A, a permanent population, B, a defined territory, C, a government, and D, the capacity to enter into relations with other states. And this is pursuant to the Montevideo Convention on the Rights and Duties of States. All right, y'all can look up that article and read them. 16 articles, not that long. But anyway, let's get it. So our government. The governing laws for Allah's 5% nation state shall be that we, the original people for Allah's 5% nation state, as nationals or state nationals, are governed under the governing laws for the Universal Constitution for Allah's 5% nation state, under agreement with, or UA. Whenever you see U/A, that means under agreement with. Our divine officers. So the divine officers are the board of officers that basically govern the nation state under the Universal Constitution. And more so, this is a constitution that applies to the school, Allah School in Mecca, in which there are affiliation clauses in there that states that the constitution is adopted by the school, and that the Allah World Manifest International Organization, which is working under agreement with Allah School in Mecca, but is not part of Allah School in Mecca itself, and wherever the rules and regulations of the Allah World Manifest International Organization differ from the rules and regulations of Allah School of Mecca, the rules and regulations of Allah School of Mecca shall take precedence, meaning that none of this which is being introduced is changing any of the rules and regulations that go on at Allah School. However, Allah School will be able to adopt the Constitution and have a clause of severability, so to speak, and a separation clause as to where it's an affiliation but not a direct collaboration, so to speak. It's not a direct it's not part of the school, you know what I mean, but it's in association with. So that's basically what that is. So anyway, then we also have the self-executed Universal Treaty for Peace, Freedom, Justice, and Equality, under agreement with the Peacekeeping Force / Monitoring Group / Ceasefire Commission for Allah's 5% nation state, and Allah World Manifest Intergovernmental Organization. So what is an intergovernmental organization? An intergovernmental organization is an organization that basically is functioned off of a treaty or an international agreement. So the Universal Treaty for Peace, Freedom, Justice, and Equality shall be the governing laws for Allah World Manifest Intergovernmental Organization, and the Peacekeeping Force / Monitoring Group / Ceasefire Commission shall be the Peacekeeping Force / Monitoring Group / Ceasefire Commission for Allah's 5% nation state, governed under the Peace Treaty. See what I'm saying? And this will be a security force that we will have to put together, and they will also be under agreement with the fruit of Allah. That hasn't been confirmed yet. It has been mentioned, the idea has been introduced. However, maybe when they see this and see the sophistication of the structure being put together, then they'll see, what was really being introduced, because it wasn't really thoroughly investigated when it was introduced. So, maybe they could see this and get more aware of what's going on. So let's proceed. So the Universal Charter for Allah's 5% nation state, under agreement with Allah World Manifest International Organization and the Board for Peace Officers. So we have a charter for the universal, for Allah's 5% nation state, which is under agreement with Allah World Manifest International Organization. So what is Allah World Manifest International Organization? Allah World Manifest International Organization is an organization that will basically act on behalf of Allah's 5% nation state in international affairs. So, for example, when the United States, right, the United States of America, when there's a United Nations meeting or whatever, the United States of America doesn't go to the United Nations per se, but the United States goes to the United Nations on behalf of the United States of America, acting as an international organization, which basically acts like a power of attorney or like a trustee on behalf of the United States of America. So Allah World Manifest International Organization will be like the power of attorney or the trustee on behalf of Allah's 5% nation state, which is governed by the Universal Charter, which is the international agreement that they are governed under. And the Board for Peace Officers are the board that basically governs the matters for the international organization, Allah World Manifest International Organization, and also they will be governed under the Charter for Allah's 5% nation state. So the Charter is working in conjunction with the International Organization and the Board for Peace Officers work in conjunction with the Universal Charter. So, moving on. The Allah U Justice Estates Revocable Divine Trust and Allah U Justice Estates Divine Trust Territories, under agreement with the Board for Divine Trusteeship and the International Board for Divine Trusteeship. Okay, now what is that dealing with? This particular entity, Allah U Justice Estates Divine Revocable Divine Trust, is a trust that was created to be the governing laws for the trust territories or divine trust territories known as Allah U Justice Estates Divine Trust Territories. And check this out, there's another entity too within that. Allah U Justice Estates is actually a holding company which will hold the revocable divine trust in its possession. So there's a holding company that holds the trust, and these are, layers of protection and for other reasons as well. So and the divine trust territories are the governing the defined territory, which is section B for the 4 elements that create a state, which is A, the permanent population, B, the defined territory. So Allah U Justice Estates Divine Trust Territories shall be the defined territory within the formal designated borders of each of the regions that we hold, right? So, for example, Region 1, which is now Y, or New York, and now Just, which is New Jersey. That's Region 1. You know what I'm saying? And then the other regions that we also have, we will branch out and also create what's called the International Board for Divine Trusteeship. And how would that be formed? Okay, well, the Board for Divine Trusteeship is going to be the board that governs the divine trust territories under the revocable divine trust, right? So the divine trust is the governing laws that will be governed throughout the divine trust territories, and they will be administrated by the Board for Divine Trusteeship. So once we set up our Board for Divine Trusteeship in Mecca and Medina and Oasis and Pelon and Lord's Island and Savior's Island, in all these regions, then we will come together, and also too in the other 8 regions in the different states, because understand this, states are international, right? Because each state is sovereign. Each state has its own international laws that it governs itself by. So due to that fact, the United States itself would be considered international. A lot of times we think international means that you have to, get on a boat or a plane and cross borders and go overseas. No, the United States itself is international. The 50 states, how they interact with each other, that is an international organization within itself. It's called the United States. You know what I'm saying? The United States is an international organization, which is actually a corporation or an entity, a business. A state is basically a business for the politics of a nation. That's what a state is. You know what I'm saying? Basically. And it has administrative laws that govern within that defined territory. So like I said, so once we have the board for divine trusteeship in the different regions, we will come together and hold a convention, an international convention. It's going to be called the International Convention for the Board for Divine Trusteeship. That's what we'll call it. I just made that up right now. But yeah, that's what it's going to be called, right? So the International Convention for the Board of Divine Trusteeship. And that international convention is going to be an international meeting where we all come together and we see that we all got the same structure. We're going to put together provisions that we are all universally or internationally governed by. So then that international convention, we will actually, as different regions forming nation states, we will actually have our own international laws being put into place. This is how you do this, y'all. I done studied this, I done broke this down, and actually developed all of this documentation to show us how to govern ourselves internationally. You understand what I'm saying? And this can be done right now. I'm not going to give you a wait and see program. Well, we can do this 2 years from now, 5 years from now. No. All of this can get done, can start being done right now. Because all the documentation that it needs to get started is all, as you can see, it's already being laid down. It's already been laid down. So we just need to start these study groups, start to get this information on deck, on our brain, memorize it just like we memorize our lessons, and start to exercise this. So let's continue. The resolution to adopt trust, allow you justice estates, revocable divine trust, declaration for a trust under agreement with, allow you justice estates, revocable divine trust, under agreement with deed for trust for allow you justice estates, revocable divine trust, under agreement with the board for peace officers. Okay, so what is all of that? Okay, so that right there is saying there's a resolution to adopt the trust, right? Because like I said, right, even with a law school in Mecca, they can adopt the trust. You know what I'm saying? Which means it was an adoption, and it's not something that was how do you say, the primary governing laws for a law school in Mecca is something that they would adopt or can adopt and work in conjunction with, you know, under affiliation with a separation clause to prevent a conflict of interest from whatever other non-political activities that other people may be involved in that may prevent them from dealing in political activities or speaking on political activities, such as a 501c3 excuse me such as those type of things. So so to prevent the conflict of interest, this is why I thoroughly investigated and studied and drew this up. So I hope y'all understand what I'm saying, so y'all don't come with that, yo, this is gonna mess up our... Anyway, so let's go. So the revocable, the resolution to adopt a trust, which is allow you justice estates, revocable divine trust, the declaration for divine trust. So in other words, there's a declaration for trust. So in other words, if we need to deal with any legal situations, dealing with the courts, what have you, we would only present them a declaration of trust. We don't have to give them a whole trust, or the resolution to adopt trust, which has certain earmarks in it that speak about how we function, which would be basically our private bylaws, which, you know, government doesn't necessarily have to know per se, or any other state has to know per se, because that's private confidential information. So we got to understand what's private and what's public. So the declaration for divine trust will be something that they could view and see a synopsis of, you know, what we got going on. So that's under agreement with allow you justice estates, revocable divine trust, under agreement with the deed for trust. So the deed for trust for allow you estates, revocable divine trust is in association with the declaration for adverse possession. Because remember that old 5% that came out right here? It said our first goal is land and adverse possession. What is adverse possession? Adverse possession is when you possess land adversely, meaning that you can possess it through certain ways. Look at this right here. So you got purpose, right? This is the purpose. This is how the declaration, part of the declaration, right? So it says the purpose for this declaration is to claim for declaration of claim for adverse possession is to declare in order to seek perfect and lawful, one, quiet title claim upon real property, following due process, statutory requirements, improvements, and payments of taxes, and other considerations, including community service, or a negotiation with the title holder, should the title holder seek to challenge the claim, or to make arrangements with the title holder in order to transfer the deed to the claimant by some other means, in essence, purchase, easement, etc. 3. Simple occupation. This rule, followed by most states today, defines hostile as mere occupation of the land. The trespasser doesn't have to know that the land belongs to someone else. Adverse possession. 4. Awareness of trespassing. This rule requires that the trespasser be cognizant that his or her use of the property amounts to trespassing, meaning trespassers has no legal right to be on the property. And 5, good faith mistake. A few states follow this rule, which requires trespassers to have made an innocent good faith mistake in occupying the property. Part of self. In the first place, such by as relying on an invalid or incorrect deed. So the reason why we drew up the deed, also, like I said, it's in conjunction with the adverse possession, because once we adversely possess the land, then we can also put that land in a deed, and that deed will also be another layer of protection for the land. You see what I'm saying? So there's reasons why all these things are being done. All right. So and technically, deed, it's not going to be a deed for trust. It's going to be I have to change it to deed, and I have changed it already. Deed in trust, because I was doing some studying, and I found the term deed in trust, and technically it would be a deed in trust, because you're putting the trust in the deed, or the so forth. So that's what the technical definition for that is. So it says under agreement with the board for peace officers. So the board for peace officers are the ones that's going to be governing the divine trust territory under the trust, or as well also with the divine board for trustees. They will be governing the trust territories, and the trust itself will be governed by the peace officers. So we got peace officers to govern the trust itself, and then the board for divine trustees, which will also govern that trust throughout the trust territories. That's more properly how it would go. So under agreement with the deed for trust for law, you justice, estates, revocable divine trust, under agreement with the board for peace officers, right? Okay. So let's continue. So the law, you justice, estates, multinational franchise, under agreement with the franchisor and franchisees. That right there is a entity that was established for basically for us to deal in international trade. You know what I'm saying? It's called the multinational franchise, which means that we will deal with multiple nations in trade. You know what I'm saying? And it'll be a franchise where we could develop a gross domestic product, you know what I'm saying, where we can deal and trade with others, and we can also deal with trade with them with their gross domestic products and what have you. So this will be a multinational franchise in which we also have a license agreement where it says the franchise and franchisee. So we, as Allah You Justice Estates, as the franchisee, as the franchisor, will allow others or franchisees to work under license agreement of the franchisor, which is the Allah You Justice Estates multinational franchise, and they will be able to sell products under our banner, under our name, under our organization, and so forth and so forth. This is how we're also showing our capacity to enter into relations with other states, which is Section D of the Montevideo Convention. So the Allah You Justice Estates Decentralized Organization for Autonomy, Foreign LLC, FLLC, that's Foreign LLC. And that's how I fashioned it, because I learned about foreign LLCs a while ago, but I said, hold on, well, I mean, being that we still under the jurisdiction, of the United States or whatever, it's like, how could I really implement a foreign LLC, because I'm not in a foreign jurisdiction? But now that we have a laws 5% nation state with its own defined territory within the designated borders of the regions that we claim administration over, now we have a foreign jurisdiction. Now we can create this foreign LLC and do business and show our capacity to enter into relations with other states via this foreign LLC. Now, when a foreign LLC, when they ask you to draw the state the jurisdiction that the LLC is created in, the jurisdiction is going to be our defined territory within the formal designated borders of our regions. That's going to be the foreign jurisdiction that it's in. And then when it enters into the jurisdiction of the United States, it's coming from a foreign jurisdiction, which means which guess what, y'all? Guess what that means? Did you know the United States is obligated to fund foreign entities, foreign businesses, foreign governments? Did you know that? So guess what, y'all? You could actually get funding for that as well, because you are now in a foreign status. So when you wonder why, how could these foreigners come over here and they got a store and a gas station and they just got here last week? How they get all of this so fast? It's called foreign aid, y'all. So when you're in a foreign status, you can get foreign aid. But if you're in a subject status, we already know the aid that comes along with that. Food stamps, Section 8, that's about it. But anyway, PPP loans, shit like that. But anyway, so let's continue. All right, so allow you justice. So this is also a decentralized autonomous organization, what's called a DAO, right? But I styled it as a decentralized organization for autonomy. I just kind of, switched up the language or whatever. But it's basically a DAO, a decentralized autonomous organization. Decentralized means that it's not governed or taxed by the state or the government. Kind of like Bitcoin, you know what I'm saying? Which is what you call a what's the term in here? I think it's in here. Anyway, it'll come to me. So under agreement, with all affiliates, contractors, insurers, interest holders, lenders, operators, parties, project investors, project participants, states, state authorities, state entities, etc. All these organs, political subdivisions of our God body politic. Yeah, that's how I styled it. It's called a God body politic because we are a God-centered culture, and then our politics is based on, how we deal in our social equality based on our supreme mathematics, alphabet lessons, and so forth. Therefore, our politics is a God body politic. You know what I'm saying? That's how I styled it. No, I ain't talking about God body that started in Rikers Island prison in 1972. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about our God body politic, in which the gods are manifesting a body of politics. What even the scriptures say, Psalms 82:1. I ain't even gonna go to 82:6 where it says, "And I have said, ye your gods, and all of your children the Most High." But it says, verse 1, God standeth in the congregation of the mighty. He judges among the gods. So that shows you right there that there's an equality among the gods. Am I mixing religion with state? Am I mixing church and state? No, I'm just getting you to understand that even states have some kind of religious providence. Even like they say in the pledge, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all that, blah, 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 blah. So, we have an acknowledgement of God, and this is our acknowledgement of God, how we acknowledge God, because we acknowledge God itself. So that's why it's and the body, as we say, God body, Allah is the mind, God is the body. So what's a God body politic? It is what it is, man. I don't care who disagree with it. Did you put this together? No. So when you put together something and you call it what you want to call it, how about that? Case closed on that. So for our government, so all these organs or subdivisions of our God body politic for our government shall function as multiple state entities under the state authority of Allah's 5% nation state. So what is a state entity? State entity shall mean any entity in which directly or indirectly a state has controlling equity or ownership interests or similar economic interests, or which that state directly or indirectly controls. State authority shall mean any organ of a state that at each level of authority, whether the organ exercises legislative, executive, judicial, or any other state functions, and including without limitation all central, regional, municipal, local, and judicial organs, or any consistent element of such organs having the power to govern, adjudicate, regulate, levy, or collect taxes, duties, or other charges, grant licenses or permits or approvals, or otherwise affect the rights and obligations of any project participants, their successors, or permitted assignees in respects of project activities. So, the state authority is basically the authority granted by the state through these state entities to basically have the authority to do all of these things mentioned. You know what I mean? So just like this, right? When you go to get a license, so say for example, right, with an LLC, when you file your LLC, not a foreign LLC, but when you file your regular LLC, you file that with the Department of State, right? And you got to get a license from them to function with your LLC. So through that state authority, the state entity known as the Department of State grants you the license or the permit to go out and function through your LLC. You see what I'm saying? So that's basically the same thing we'll be doing under our laws 5% nation state. All the state entities, like the ones I'm breaking down, all these entities I'm mentioning, the Board for Divine Trusteeship, the multinational franchise, the decentralized autonomous organization, the international organization, the intergovernmental organization, the peace treaty, the Constitution, so forth and so forth. All of these entities or state entities shall be under state authority, shall have state authority. You understand? To exercise their rights. Okay. So yeah, so that kind of brings us to the end on that one. I'm gonna end on that, and I'll come back on the next one right here. And the next video will be D, our capacity to enter into relations with other states. All right, but on that, I'm gonna end this one right here, y'all. You know what I mean? Thank y'all for y'all attention, and I'm gonna end by saying my term of peace is political education allows colonial emancipation, and that's peace, y'all.